I'm so glad that we, as TAB, are doing this reading together of Tish Warren's book, Liturgy of the Ordinary, and particularly glad that you are a part of it. I will be praying that you'll be blessed and encouraged by your read and by the small group opportunities that we'll share together. I had an opportunity to read this book several years ago, and so I'm particularly glad now that we'll read it together. I think the word liturgy, it's kind of a church word, isn't it? It's rote, it's the rites of worship, it's what is printed, it's formulaic, it sounds formal to us. I find that it's an interesting pairing of the words liturgy with ordinary, the mundane, the everyday of our lives. The purpose of liturgy in a worship service is not just to guide us through an order of worship. It's really to allow us to do in worship what we're designed to do in the everyday of our lives. So in that way, the pairing makes great sense. But if you think of an order of worship, we come into God's presence. We offer adoration and praise to God. We confess our sin to God. We hear God's forgiveness to us. We spend time in prayer. We spend time in Scripture. We receive from God, and then we give thanks to God and go out with His blessing. So the order of worship becomes the structure for our everyday lives. Tish uses a word or a phrase by Annie Dillard, where she says, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. And so the liturgy of the ordinary becomes an opportunity for us to think in terms of how in the everyday of our lives, in the ordinary of our lives, we can become more God conscious. There are certain practices of the liturgy, the ordinary, that I have actually put into practice since I read the book a couple of years ago. The one that comes immediately to mind is she speaks of the idea of beginning the day or welcoming the day slowly, of not reaching for the phone, not jumping out of bed in a hurry, but to waking slowly to the day. And so I'll be interested in hearing your perceptions, what you take from the book, what you will incorporate into your daily lives. Let me share one reflection, and then I'll send you off into small groups. One of my favorite liturgical practices in the church is baptism. Whether it's adult or infant baptism, it is a joy. Let's think for a moment, though, of infant baptism, if you were. Babies, young parents, the joy and the celebration of a family and then of a church family, the uncertainty of what's going to happen in that moment as parents are holding a child or parents pass me the child. What's this child going to do? And you can imagine all the different things that kids have done to me through the years. In that liturgy of the sacrament is a promise that is made by parents to raise their children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And then the congregation, the church family, makes a very similar promise to help raise this child in the nurture and admonition of the Lord to the end that one day he or she will confess Jesus Christ as his or her own. I love all of that. But what I love most of all in the sacrament of baptism is that it is all God. Baptism is all God. It's nothing we do. It's nothing we earn or deserve. We receive God's love. We receive God's blessing long before we know that we need God's love or blessing. In baptism, we're reminded again that God is the giver and we are the receivers. In baptism and in all of life, not because of who we are, but because of who God is, not because of what we've done, because think of an infant. They have done nothing to receive this gift, and yet receive it they do. So my hope and my prayer for you today is that you will receive the blessing of God and that you will be reminded that you are the beloved. God bless you. Enjoy your time. I look forward to picking up this conversation with you again.